Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Golden Aces Nation podcast. That's the Hall of Fame voice of the Golden Aces, Scott Allen. I'm Kyle Peach. Glad to be back with you for another week. We're going to talk a little Aces football here, get you set for the matchup, the big showdown in the Little Illini Conference with the starlings that they are, the Olney Tigers. We're going to hear from Josh Brown from Olney Tiger Country, where Scott's going to have some stories with us. We're going to talk about regional champion, Lady Aces golfers. Once again, no surprise, the fifth time in a row, the five-peat of regional champions for the Lady Aces in girls golf, and that's quite an accomplishment to say the least.
Yep. You bet, Kyle, and thank you very much. Glad to have everybody with us. And that streak that you've been talking up continues for the girls golf team on not having lost at any level, anything, an invite, a duel, anything. And it's going on. Oh, I think the streak's longer than I'm old. I think it seems like it's that old anyway.
I don't think that they ever, I don't think that they ever lose. September 24th, 2020 is the last
Hmm.
time. Since that point, the Lady Aces are undefeated. That's just remarkable. We'll talk to them here in just a bit, talk about them here in just a bit in their regional championship. Let's talk a little bit, though, about the Golden Aces coming off a win over the Paris Tigers on the road last week. Uh, Thought we were going to have to deal with some weather, but in the end we did not. But we did have to deal with a Paris team that kind of gave us everything we wanted.
Yeah, I had to come from behind to get the win, but nonetheless, the Aces are where they want to be at this point in the season. And I know we'll talk up Olney here in a minute when we get Josh on, but boy, they're one of the story. They are the storyline in the conference, I think, this year is the turnaround they've gotten from 0-9 to 5-0. Are we seeing a worst of first thing in high school football? Well, who knows? We'll talk more about that though. But you're right. It was in a lot of ways, and I think Michael Brewer talked about it afterwards. There are some good positive takeaways from that game. First of all, it was up in Paris and first time on grass, I guess this year, just about. Well, is it? Was it? Nope, we played Effingham.
Robinson was grass.
Robinson, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet, we had to kind of muscle up a little effort there to get out of harm's way, and certainly we did, and give our young kids credit. We've seen Mount Carmel kids do this over the years. When they had to, they did, and yet this was kind of a learning curve for this group to have to do that in that situation in a real time setting with the conference win streak on the line and all the pressure associated with that. But yet these kids came through too. So all things considered, I think we had to be pretty happy with it. And now, of course, everybody in southeastern Illinois is talking up the Olney Tigers. So can Mount Carmel? I mean, can we deal with not being the center of attention? Usually, we're the center of the football universe, and maybe not this week.
Yeah,
And
how
maybe
about
that's a
that?
good thing. Who knows?
34-27 was the win over Paris. Mount Carmel amassed 416 yards on the ground, only 15 yards on one completed pass. And Scott, you said it on the air last week. I think you're right. The passing game may be the next thing we got to knock down here.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely gonna need it at some point, and probably in this regular season, and perhaps this weekend. And so we're gonna have to come up with a little bit of game plan on that. And I know the coaches are working overtime on it. We'll get it there. We'll get it figured out. But it's taking a little longer than sometimes. I think I referenced earlier in the year. I remember John Gates, is a longtime assistant coach at Mount Carmel. He would mostly be in charge of defense, but he would always be concerned we'd get into week 3 and week 4, and we knew we had our week 5 showdown with Salem. Those of you familiar with the old North Egypt conference schedules that we had, it was usually always a showdown game, and he was always a little worried. He goes, we're not there yet. We need to come a long ways here in week 3 and week 4. And somehow, some way, the Aces always made that adjustment. And so we're kind of in that same boat here. It's taken a little longer for this passing game to come along, and everybody's working on it. The coaches are still moving forward with their game plan, installing a little bit more every week. We've seen bubble screens. We've seen a couple other things this week that we didn't see earlier in the season. So they're still making progress because they kind of have to. I mean, the season's only 9 weeks long, and then we get the postseason. So, but yep, you're right. That's one part of the offense that Mount Carmel has to do a little better job of. And as I mentioned with John Gates, we'd always find a way. Well, this bunch really has this young bunch, learning bunch, has proven themselves to be exemplary in a lot of parts of this game. Well, this is going to be the next part they'll have to stiffen up on a little bit, and that's get the passing game going.
And to make the argument to this point, at least in LIC play, the Aces haven't needed it. They've gotten 3 wins with the predominant ground team. So, there's also the old adage of Larry Davis, here's what we're going to do, go stop it. That might play into this as well. But let's take just a moment. We'll listen to Michael Brewer's post-game comments from the win against Paris.
We'll win them. We'll win them pretty, and we'll win them ugly too. So we don't really care much how it works. We played really well at times and pretty bad at times today. So we're just gonna have to learn some lessons from it, and keep getting better. Young team, we've talked about that over and over again. But we had really good moments, and we had moments where we're just not. It's like we're just mentally not locked in or whatever else. But covering some kicks, just like we got to run down. I mean, why would we stop running down there to go cover a kick? You know what I mean? So stuff like that's just weird, and so those things like that have to be fixed. We just have to be a more consistent football team.
Yeah, and if it weren't for a slip out on a cut heading into the end zone, it might have been a little less tension at the end of this game earlier, but that's just the way it worked out.
Yeah, yeah. So there, right before half, that one was unfortunate. I think we had made a tweak to one of the blocking schemes, and probably looking back, it wasn't a good one. So we flipped that back at halftime, and Shane just kind of lost his footing, and we didn't get the movement we needed to get. So we finagled that again. Yeah, that one would have been nice to have, but I you know what? In some ways, now that it's over with, I can be happy about it because it was good for our kids. To just play through it and move on, right? Because it's
the whole thing. Because you're down 21 to 12 in a conference game. This is not something Mount Carmel teams are used to, and the young team as it is. Yeah, we just rallied to the occasion, marched the ball down the field, and got back in it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so exactly. That's what we're gonna hang our hat on here today. That's the good. That's the positive. There's a lot we can learn too from a win, so that's good. You don't have to, you can learn a lot from a loss. It's better to learn a lot from a win. So yeah, you're right. So in some tough situations, battled back, kept fighting, and that's exactly what we needed to do.
And we faced probably the best quarterback we've seen this year. This Drew Rogers kid. He's just a good all-around athlete. Anybody who wins a state championship in an event, even if it is track, I mean, he's got that mentality, and he found us. He found some holes in us, and yet and he was chased all over the place today too.
Yeah, we were chasing him around quite a bit, and if we can't get there and get to him a little bit quicker, it makes it really hard on those guys in the back end to keep covering. You just can't cover forever. But again, there's some big plays on defense too when we needed them, right? To get them to start a possession in 2nd and 12, right? When we get a tackle for a loss, we're kind of we're stealing it down there, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get ourselves set up in those good situations. We got to be able to get off the field when we get those.
Yeah, we figured it out a little bit better against Burns later in the game as the game progressed on, it seems like.
Yeah, we did. Jack Webb was playing in a different position today, and here in the 4th quarter, he was kind of dialed in a little bit more, getting flat and making a tackle finally. You saw, instead of chasing things around from behind. So he was adjusted, and so again, MJ Militoni's moved now out. We kind of have him in a different spot, and Jackson Kling, and I think those are going to be good adjustments. We need some more time in those positions.
And what about the effort Kling gave you in the backfield?
Yeah,
Holy
how about that?
Mackerel.
Yeah, so that was
everything was a big number from him.
I told him, who knew you were our speed back? The pop the big play. So yeah, he was an excellent change of pace for Elliott. We lean on Elliott a lot and give him a lot of carries. So it was nice to have a fresh guy come in and be able to pop some of those. And the other thing is Jackson just runs so stinking hard. If you get in the way, you better be ready to put on your big boy pants and come tackle, because he will lower that shoulder, and he enjoys going right through you.
Well, Coach, that sets the stage for a showdown next week. Boy, can you? A Cinderella story supreme in this LIC. Well, they go from 0-9 to 5-0 in 1 year.
So 0-9 to undefeated. Yeah. They're good. They're fast. They're super athletic. They have really, really good athletes all over the field, and they're big on the line. So that's what you're looking for in a football team. So it'll be a great challenge.
Yeah, and it will be a big weekend. It's Hall of Fame weekend, so there'll be a lot of people in town, and should be a dandy ball game.
Yeah, hope so. So give us something to. Those are the type of games you want to play in. Those are the games that are fun. So we'll have our work cut out for us, and we'll go see what we can do.
And that was Mount Carmel football coach Michael Brewer after the Aces win over Paris last week.
Scott's a few stats before we put the Paris game to rest. It was Elliott Acree leading the way on the ground, 34 carries, 184 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jackson Kling had a nice night, 7 carries, 117 yards, and a score. To kind of highlight the Mount Carmel rushing attack of 416 yards. It was a narrow win, but a win for the Golden Aces on the road. And the kind of the interesting thing for me, I think that the big question I guess I have is the Aces game ends up getting played on a Saturday. Olney's game was on a Thursday. So the Tigers will come in with 2 more days rest Friday night than what the Aces will have. Will that be a factor or not? We'll see. But boy, big showdown on Friday night at the Snake Pit.
Yeah, it really was. And I imagine it'll be pretty much normal for Mount Carmel. And it was a normal week. They had their Monday, Tuesday regular workout plans, Thursday walkthrough, and all that stuff. So I imagine it won't be too much of a different. It's probably weird playing on Thursday night if you're Olney for that week, and it could disrupt them a little bit. But they're high school kids; they'll get ready for it. But what a night for our offense on the ground! I mean, we've definitely got a two-headed monster going now on that offensive backfield, the way it's looking now between Acree and Kling, and now we'll start to utilize Bader again a little bit more, and then of course we've also got Acree that can keep the ball too. So I don't know. We've got lots to offer on that running game, and we need to have lots to offer because this is going to be the biggest game of the year.
Looking seasonally, Elliott Acree on the year has 100 carries even for 685 yards. Shane Metter 49 for 220 and Jackson Kling 36 for 244. Don't forget Tobias Fulop too, 13 carries,
Yeah.
121 yards for the seniors. So we have the ability to spread the wealth around. And as we start to look at some Olney statistics, 2 players stand out on the rushing side of things. They've got 1,000 team yards, but Dirks Weiler, 57 carries for 337 yards, and then Gavin Cawthorn, 52 carries for 664 yards. They account for darn near all of the rushing yards for the Tigers just themselves. 2 players with the bulk of the yardage for them. And then passing the ball, Cawthorn 50 times he's thrown it, 31 times it's been complete for 479 yards. So a little bit better mixed pass ratio to run for the Tigers as the Aces get set to battle Olney on Friday night. Scott, how much do you put into the mystique of Riverview Stadium and the fact that the Tigers have not been able to beat the Aces since 1982? Does that help Mount Carmel or does it hurt Mount Carmel in this kind of situation?
Well, I always thought it helped Mount Carmel. The funny thing is, for the longest time, if you looked at wins and losses home versus the road, for the longest time during the playoff era, we would actually have a better percentage on the road than at home in playoff games. Now, there was a reason for that too. For the longest time, you were penalized for being the more successful playoff team. Remember the way the IHSA did it for 15, 20 years? The team that hosted the fewest games got to the team that hosted the most games would go on the road. And so you'd have teams coming in here that by the time we'd finally host a playoff game, then after being on the road every first game of every year there for a while. So we faced very good teams that had a better chance to beat us in the postseason. And so it's funny there for a good 10 or 12 year stretch, we were actually doing better in the early rounds on the road than we did at home. Now, obviously, that means nothing nowadays because that's all been straightened out. They've corrected that over the course of time. And now teams are rewarded for their playoff success and for the better record. They get the home teams with the higher number of playoff points, et cetera. And, you see it all the time. Teams come in and are taking pictures. They did a couple of weeks ago. Teams are taking pictures. They want to picture themselves here with the new stadium and everything else. The teams do it. The schools do it. How many video cameras did we see a couple of home games ago? Was at Newton, right?
Yeah.
How many Newton fans were taking videos of the Snake Pit?
When we were walking down the stadium, everybody on the visitor side, literally everybody, had their cell phone out filming that. That was just quite a sight.
And if you don't need any more indication that apparently other coaches view it as a possibility to be intimidating to be at Riverview Stadium, you notice how many coaches have figured out not to be on the field when we make our grand entrance from the top. They're always in the back in the lockers. They're somewhere, but they're not watching it.
Yeah.
And because obviously the word gets around about how we can be intimidating. And you know what? When you think about it, you're 15 through 18-year-old kid, you look up at that stance. First of all, the edifice looks a lot bigger when you're a lot younger. And now here come the monsters of the Midway down the stairs to face you. Oh yeah, I mean it would be intimidating. So no wonder it's a plan of attack for coaches during the pregame to not be on the field taking all that in for the opposing team. That ought to tell you more than anything else of how others feel about playing at Riverview Stadium.
Hey, the next phase of construction at Riverview Stadium, and I believe we're done for a while, but the next phase ought to be smoke detectors, smoke machines, fog machines, and flashing lights to add to that. Then they can be done until they put the dome on the thing later down the line. But that should, it is intimidating, and there's nothing quite like it.
And isn't the music that they play at Mount Carmel to come down the stadium the same as Texas A&M? Now we need to get all the fans at the stadium jumping up and down while the team comes up. I don't know. There's a lot of older people like me. I don't think I could do that. But anyway, it's just an idea. So
and everybody, if everybody in the stands would do this as we're coming down the stadium, turn the flashlight on your phone as they come down, and everybody's got the light on. That would be a cool effect. I don't know how we pull this thing off, but there's the start of there's the seed. The seed has been planted. We'll see if it goes anywhere from there. But Scott, I know that we were excited to earlier tonight talk to our friend Josh Brown, a longtime broadcaster, and obviously he bleeds Tiger orange and black up there in Olney about this Tiger team, and it's going to be a fun one on Friday night.
And I can't help but think I didn't bring it up to Josh here too. Now he's no longer a radio guy, but and I know that once you are a radio guy, it's in your blood forever. He may be a coach and a teacher now, but the fact is, I bet somewhere down deep, he would be thrilled to be calling that game, given the season that Olney's having, the storybook campaign. I got to tell you what, 49 years that I've never seen a conference team in any of the leagues we've been in go from worst to first in case that would happen. 0-9 to 5-0 is impressive enough. And God, you'd almost love to be Josh Brown in that situation. What you would say, how would you open the broadcast, all the kind of cool things that we think about that probably bore most people to death. But the words you'd choose at that moment to take the air with the Tiger team coming into Mount Carmel trying to knock off the beast. And they're a wonderful 5-0 and a great ball club on top of that. So yeah, I can't help but think I kind of wish he probably wishes he was on the air this Friday night anyway.
Yeah, for sure. He'll be there for sure. We'll see Josh on Friday night, as well as I'm assuming everybody in Olney. It's kind of one of those last one out the door, shut the lights off kind of night. Should be a jam-packed Riverview Stadium. Here's the interview that we did with Josh Brown, the former voice and certainly scholar of Olney Tiger athletics, about the big matchup Friday night.
Well, we have a very special guest on this portion of the program, none other than Josh Brown. He's really, as far as I'm concerned, an Olney guru. He's a former voice of the Tigers. He's an assistant basketball coach. He's a good friend, a former student at Wabash Valley College, and he's the guy that's going to tell us about this miracle season that Olney is putting together. Josh, glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I've been listening to you since week one, 4 or 5 weeks ago now, and it's always been a joy. Every chance I can get to catch you guys calling games, I do that. And I think I texted you guys the other day. You're the reason I got out of the radio business. I couldn't keep up with you guys. You're the class of the field.
Oh, I thought you meant we drove you out of the business.
Well, that would be more appropriate. And you got to stop all these compliments too, because that's putting pressure. That's too much pressure. Too much pressure on us. But I have a feeling that the pressure is going to be on the Golden Aces to some extent on Friday. This Tiger team, what in the world has happened? They're off to an undefeated start to the season.
Yeah, undefeated start. First of all, you guys got to tip your hat to Coach Carmody. Those guys, they put a lot of work in, and you guys saw last year they took some lumps against some pretty good teams, your Golden Aces included. I mean, they had growing pains in year one, and the off season they got healthy, got stronger, and kind of got motivated. And I think those guys have come out wanting to show that 0-9 was kind of a fluke.
So did you kind of have that feeling before the season began? Well, it's taken, they're 5-0, the big numbers that you've been throwing up. So we know it's there now, but when did you guys begin to sense that this was really quite the turnaround?
I call it the Dallas Cowboys fan in me. I always set the bar low, so I'm always pleasantly surprised. And week one, Taylorville, who was bringing everybody back, and I kept seeing our guys in the hallway coming through some workouts and stuff, and I mean they were optimistic. They thought they could come out and beat a team who was a playoff team a year ago, and about halfway through that third quarter in week one, I kind of look over at Justin Hatton, who's I think knows more about Tiger football than maybe anybody I've ever known, and
to Aces fans, we'll say that Justin Hatton is the Mike Mandrell of Tiger football, and that will make a whole lot of sense to them. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead. You're talking to Justin.
And about halfway through that third quarter, we kind of looked at each other and like, we might have something special here. Got healthy at the right spots, and some guys that were motivated who missed pretty well the whole year last year, and I think they came out wanting to prove a point, and they've done that against some pretty good teams here early on. Taylorville's a good team. Mattoon, who just beat Mount Zion, who's got at least two Division I athletes. That ended up being a good win for the Tigers and an undefeated start to the conference season. So I know Coach Carmody, he's got these guys ready to go, and he'll have them ready to go. But I mean, there's something about that golden ace down there. I called it this week talking to some people at school. I said it's the mystique. There's just something about Mount Carmel. You just have to overcome that before you even start hitting each other on the field.
Hey, but you guys are the talk of the town right now. Tell us about the Tigers. What kind of team are you?
I mean, they're still fairly young at some key spots, and young. I mean, juniors. It's a lot of spots. Junior quarterback, junior receivers. But the line is kind of where it all starts. I think you guys know that from all the years in Mount Carmel. If you don't have a line, you're usually in trouble. And it might be the biggest line I've seen in Olney since 2013. And that team went to the playoffs, upset Breeze Mater Day, and had Alton Marquette on the ropes. It starts, big guys at the tackle spots, veteran center, and two big guards that can move a little bit. So those guys set the tone, and then have a state champion at quarterback. He's a state champion in the long jump and super athletic. He played for me as a freshman in basketball, and I told him before a game as a freshman, I'm going to get you a dunk tonight, and he did everything but slam it. So he's a special player, and you got guys on the perimeter that's got speed, and a good running back now that's running hard, and it's maybe one of the hardest runners I've seen in quite a while, and just in terms of just sheer, I want to try to run somebody over.
Tell us some of the names to be watching out for, and I know there's a story about at least a couple of those skill position players that were out last year who have really come back and made a big impact.
Gavin Cawthorn, I kind of call him Blaine Sisson light. Very similar type athlete. They're both explosive, both super talented athletically, and they just so happen they're going to touch the ball about every play at quarterback. And it starts with him. He's been phenomenal. Missed every game last year as a sophomore. Maybe one of the most competitive kids I've ever been around. And when I knew he.
Well, I think he's frozen.
Josh is frozen in time.
He's been a good two-way guy for the running game. And on the perimeter, Ian Pinefetti, he's the 100-meter dash champion. I was actually just talking to our weight coach today. I think he even won the 200, if I'm not mistaken. He was on the 4x1 relay, and he is just extremely quick, fast, and athletic. He's on the perimeter. He's doing a good job catching the football. And then there's been some guys in and out. Another junior, Reed Klingler, he's caught some big touchdowns. Cooper Hires, sophomores in there as well. And then they sneak in at 6'7", Reed Brown as a tight end and a receiver. So they've got a lot of weapons. And Coach Carmody, offensive coach, he's always been kind of offensively, leaned offense. He was offensive coordinator at Flora for several years, and he's got the offense rolling.
So talk about defense now. What does Olney bring to the table?
Defensively, I think they're still tweaking things around here a little bit. They've got guys who hit you and like hitting you, and I think that's something that old school football guys like to see. They're not afraid to lower the shoulder and lay the wood to people, and they've still got some guys in. They'll rotate guys in the line. They got a big line there too, and a lot of the names you hear, defensively. Logan McDonald, a linebacker, I think he's had a phenomenal year. Nolan Seals is, I think, of like a mid-80s safety. He just is going to want somebody to come over the middle so he can hit you. Xander Schrader's had a good year at a linebacker spot. And then you see a lot of the similar names that you'll see on offense. Evan Gilreath's been a nose tackle. He's a right guard. Casey Toman, that's a name familiar with a lot of Aces fans in different sports too. But he plays some defensive tackle, and he starts at right tackle. And I mean, they just try to rotate guys and keep guys fresh. And they have some defensive specialists that they see a lot out there that have made some big plays. I know they've gave up some points recently, and Tiger coaches have been hard at work trying to fix that because everything I've seen of the Golden Aces, they're going to be a tough team to stop because you guys are physical and strong, and I think you like hitting people as much as we do too.
Well, Josh, I got to tell you, have you and you've followed Mount Carmel football for at least several years now. Have you ever in your life seen a more different ball club from year to year than Mount Carmel has this year?
Shockingly
opposite,
different,
right?
Yeah, shockingly different. I don't think so. I mean, you go from a team that you're going to spread you out and let the quarterback just make any play he wants, and most of the time, I mean, heck, he went to the University of Illinois for a reason. He could do anything he wanted, and I just kept, the other day I was thinking about your playoff round last year, thinking, man, Tolono's good. You ran into Roxana, they're really, who's going to finally stop these guys? And you just kept rolling. And then you watched your first game this year, and that's a completely different team. I did not come out to expect an offense to look like that, but the thing that I think with Mount Carmel, it's still the defense. I mean, your offense has been great several years, but I think your defense is usually what sets the tone. You guys just make enough opportunistic plays to keep teams from playing with a lead or playing with an advantage. So I mean, I'll be curious to see how your defense does against a team that, they kind of guarded last year. I mean, Olney's offense pretty similar, or at least from what I've seen, pretty similar to the Blaine Sisson-led Aces squad last year.
You talk to us about Coach Carmody, and obviously still kind of the new kid on the block almost in the LIC. He's second year, I think, at the helm. Where's he come from? What's his pedigree? What's his background? And it seems like the kids have really bought into what he's trying to do.
Coach Carmody, he's a legacy. His dad, Dave, was a Tiger coach, and I think he took over early 90s maybe for about a couple, 2 or 3 years, and then was involved in football for a long time. Luke played here. He played receiver, played defensive back here, graduated, and he came back and helped coach music on some of his really good teams in the early 2010s. He was a part of the 2013 team. His cousin actually was the receiver on that team that was electric, made some just outstanding plays to help us beat Breeze Mater Dei. And then he kind of branched out on his own a little bit, went to Flora and was offensive coordinator there for several years. And then when Coach Music left, he decided to come home. He wanted to come back to the team that he grew up with and got the job. And he's been a hard worker, and I think the results are showing. The kids are buying into him. He's high energy guy and just a likable person. I consider him a friend, and I think he'll be one that I'm excited to have on a coaching staff and in our school district.
Yeah, I mean, what a storyline. And hearing you guys talk about defense, I know Kyle's stats are showing that Mount Carmel's young defense is starting to play a little better now. Mm-hmm. They're starting to get more aggressive, and they're generating turnovers the last 2 or 3 weeks in a row. So it sounds like this could be one whale of a defensive battle.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was impressive, last week, you guys saw with the hurricane come in, all the games changing times and dates, and I'm sitting there with my 5th grade kids. We just watch the homecoming parade, and if you ever want to see as close as you can to wild animals, see elementary school kids at a homecoming parade, man, it's enjoyable, man. Those kids buy into it and they have fun. And I heard the game got moved up to that night, that Thursday, and I'm like, oh, this could. You guys know how that goes when games get moved. It could be really good or really bad. And
yep.
Olney's offense was just electric. I mean, they had maybe 8 minutes of time of possession, and they scored every single time they wanted to, and about every different way you could think of. And Mount Carmel's defense, this is where I think it could be a battle of wills. Coach Brewer, I interviewed him several years ago when I was at the newspaper when this rivalry kind of renewed, and he's a good football coach. He'll scheme well, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Coach Brewer does defensively, especially having maybe a little bit more familiarity with the type of stuff Olney runs. I mean, when you get Blaine Sisson and every day in practice, and then you turn around the next year and you see a kid that plays very similar style to him and the way Gavin Cawthorn plays, I think it'll be curious to see what Mount Carmel does, maybe differently than anybody else has.
Hey, Josh, tell us, you've been a former voice of Mount Carmel now on occasion, haven't you?
Yeah. I remember, I think it was 2016, went up to call the Tigers game at Monticello, survived a tornado watch warning, something. The band was walking on the field and got rained on for the national anthem. Had a 30-minute delay for a flat tire on an equipment truck for one of the teams. And then on our way home, I get a call from Kyle that says, hey, our Aces game got moved to Saturday. Scott and I can't be there. I'm desperate. Can you help? And I said, well, I guess so. And I guess I got to be on the call for a pretty impressive night for one of your kids.
Yeah, Trevor Kennard goes off that night to just set the school record in terms of rushing yards in a game that night. Just remarkable. So Josh Brown, there's the face with the voice, Aces fans, who is on one of the records that may not be broken for a while. 319 yards for Trevor Kennard against Princeton back in 2016, and Josh got to tell you all about it. Scott and I were on assignment elsewhere that night. So
isn't that's the universal explanation for I'm not here.
Right. That's the broadcast term for we had something else going on. What's the talk like about 1982? Back in 2022, I think the Tigers brought that team back the week that Mount Carmel played you guys, because that's the last time that the Aces lost to the Tigers. It's also for Aces fans the last time the Aces lost in a regular season game to an LIC team. I think if I'm a Tiger fan at this point, I'm thinking 1982, we're fixing that Friday night.
I hear a lot about that era of football. I had a cousin who graduated in 88, played running back. So he got a heavy dose of seeing the Golden Aces for 4 years as a football player. That's when my mom and dad went through school. And they always talk about Coach Wilson, and, a lot of reverence to Coach Wilson. He coached here in basically the whole 80s and one of the winningest coaches in our program. And they always talk about it. He's the coach that did it. He's the coach that beat Mount Carmel. And, I chuckled about that too. I think 2022, when you said we brought the 82 team back, I go back to that Miami Hurricane 30 for 30. You want to celebrate a new stadium. You want to honor, don't bring Mount Carmel in. That'll fire those guys up. And you guys didn't need much fired up back then too, because you guys have a lot of talent that rolled through here. But, as a coach, the way I see that, I'd be sick of 1982. I'm not talking about it. That's 40 years ago. It don't matter anymore. This is 2024. It's not 1982. It's not 2022. It's this year's team versus this year's team. We're not playing the past. They're not playing our past. So, that's the way I would go about it if it was kind of me. And, I think that's how most coaches take it anymore is, use the past to maybe motivate a little bit, but, you don't play the old guys. Blaine Sisson isn't running through here. Carson Wagner, those guys that won, Joel Eagleson, Brooke Pompey, they're not rolling through here. Those guys that were really good for us, it's 2024 versus 2024.
Should be fun to
Josh,
see.
It's Hall of Fame weekend in Mount Carmel, and I know we've talked about this in the past, and that Mount Carmel really hasn't had a Hall of Fame, and now we're starting to build it. Now this will be our third class, and so it's finally happened. And boy, for a school with the pedigree that Mount Carmel and like Olney and some of the bigger schools from the old NEC era, that we'd never had a Hall of Fame until here just recently.
Yeah, that's amazing. The one thing I've really liked going around to some different schools, Justin Hatton and I rode up to Taylorville together, and we went inside during some of the early rainstorms for the late start, and I got to see their Hall of Fame and talk to one of their guys and how much reverence they have for that. And they said the guy kind of laughed and said, well, it started with one old guy. He wanted to recognize everyone. and then it just kind of passed on to the next guy. I feel like that's the way with any school that really values your athletic programs and honors the past. And one of our radio brethren, Larry McGrew, I heard him say one time, you enjoy the water, but don't forget the guys that dug the well. And I think that's what you guys are doing with your Hall of Fame. You're enjoying everything they've done for you. We're not forgetting those guys that got us there.
Can't wait to show off the new facility to you and Justin. So make sure you get there early so we got time to go do that. But I want to give you a chance because you're a basketball coach. So it's early. The way too early season prognostication for the Olney Tigers in basketball is what? Obviously, you have the 7'9" Keen Toman or whatever he is, right?
And I guess I've got the coach in me. And I lost my radio prediction crystal ball thing in me. I just want us to be healthy. I want us to have a good year. We got a bunch of good kids. They're working super hard in the weight room. Those guys not in a fall sport, and they make me enjoy coming in and being a coach every day. They're good kids. They play hard. They buy into us, and it makes being a basketball team fun. And I'm a basketball guy. I've always been a basketball guy, but it's football season right here in Olney a little bit, and I'm kind of enjoying the ride that Coach Carmody's got us on, and a collision course of 2 undefeated conference teams. I don't know if there's going to be a better game in Southern Illinois than Olney Mount Carmel Friday.
Yeah, I don't think there will be. Hey, Josh, thank you very much. We really appreciate your insight, and we're looking forward to being there at the stadium with you and showing off the new digs, and hopefully it'll be a great. I have a hunch it'll be a big crowd.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys, and I can't wait to see you Friday night. And I always enjoy seeing my guys, my friends down in Mount Carmel. And about 15 years ago, that might have felt icky saying friends in Mount Carmel, but going to school down there and get to know you guys. I mean, I guess any Tiger fans listening, I mean, they're red-blooded guys just like us, even though they a couple nights out of a year they wear the wrong colors.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I'll say one thing: if you beat us, you're buying Joe's next year when we're up at Olney or in the basketball season. And if we beat you, you're hosting next year. You'll buy Joe's Pizza for us anyway. So
yeah, I mean,
it's
I never
it's always the post-game plays. Yeah.
Yeah, never turn down Joe's. Just like the unsponsored plug here. I just can't wait to get down early and have a little taco tierra before the football game.
Yeah,
there you go. Anybody else that knows broadcasters know it's all about the food. So
it's all about the food. If we just happen to play a game, that's great. So
yeah.
Hey, Josh, thanks so much.
Yeah.
We'll see you Friday.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks to Josh Brown for the time. Again, Olney in town. The Tigers are 5-0. I think there were some questions that were raised about Olney's teams that they've played to this point to be 5-0, but it's not like they were close games. One that was with Mattoon. In fact, the Tigers made a field goal essentially as time expired to win the game over Mattoon 24-22, but the others, a 5-point win over Taylorville, then a 42-point win over Lawrenceville, and then they've scored 56 points back-to-back weeks against Marshall and Newton. So, they're beating him by the score 5-0 teams should be. So I tend to lean toward 5-0 as being legit, real 5-0, as this Olney team is. And Scott, I know that kind of reminds us of that 1982 Olney team that shocked the world, if you will, and beat Mount Carmel coming off of the Aces state championship run in 81.
Yeah. And it was part of just a rough year that Aces fans will always remember. 1982, the year we lost Marvin Matchett and Mark Treadway during homecoming week. That time, the Aces voted as a team. They voted to continue the season, and they could have voted to stop, and that would have been fine with school officials. They let the team decide, and they decided to go ahead and play it. It turned out that Olney Mount Carmel in week 8 was the homecoming game. It had been moved. The original homecoming plan was against Red Hill. And I do remember the game back, and a lot of Aces fans do remember this. Mount Carmel hit 37 points early in the second half of that game in the third quarter, and that was Marvin Matchett's number. And LD ordered the team, do not score anymore. Hold at 37. And we had to get creative in ways that we could have easily scored some more, but we didn't that day, just to have that scoreboard illuminated in the number 37 at the end of the night. So that was a special moment. And then the unfortunate events of week 8, where Olney it was a TV game. It was on the Olney TV station at the time, so it was broadcast throughout Southern Illinois. We were number one in the state the year after the state championship. We were 7-0. They were 7-0, and they waxed Mount Carmel 30-0. However, I would say, maybe this is just me talking, it felt like it really was not a 30-0 game. It was really a 16-0 game, and then we started throwing the ball, and LD Larry had to get back into the ball game and threw a couple picks or something like that late. So it really wasn't whitewashing to the point of 30-0, but it was one-sided, and Olney deserved to win, and they won it that year. And that, can you believe that's held up after all these years? And it's granted, there were 16 years we didn't even play each other because we were off in the Big 8 conference. But keep in mind, Olney had some marvelous teams. Mike Wilson was an excellent coach. In fact, what was his next job after Olney? They thought so much of him at Evansville, they hired him at Evansville North, and that's where he was a coach. He coached the Huskies after Olney. So they snapped him out of Southern Illinois. So they thought a lot of him. So, they were just a loaded ball club. And so it's not like, Mount Carmel's had to have some pretty good little ball games against Olney to get that streak going and keep it going. And so, and man, I tell you what, I don't know how you could be any more excited from Olney. There was talk in 2022. Everybody was excited about that game. The Tigers were just glad to be back in the series with Mount Carmel and everything else, and there was a lot to do. But that was all pageantry and sideshow stuff. This is legit football here. That Olney might very well be able to pull this off. So we'll have to wait and see. And it's going to be. And when you compare the Newton score that Olney had and ours, that doesn't bother me as much. First of all, we're not that kind of ball club this year. We're not a Blaine system ball club. We may not be the kind of team that's ever going to put up, at least this year, in wild looking scores on people. We're not going to beat everybody 49-56 because I don't think we've got it in us. I mean, we're a little more methodical team. We move the ball down the field. We were much younger. We don't have as many options of firepower options as we did. So,
And
so
Scott,
to me, the fact they've scored 56 and we didn't against Newton, that doesn't really bother me at all.
and we're not throwing the ball, which means the clock never stops. So I don't think we have enough time in a game to score 56 points this year. But yeah, it'll be fun as the Aces entertain the Tigers on Friday night. Obviously, there's a lot in this game for Olney. I mean, obviously, I would think if I'm part of the Tigers staff, one of my goals, win the conference, beat Mount Carmel, which is part of that winning the conference, and make the playoffs. Well, the Tigers get their 6th win, they're in the playoffs. That 6th win can be Friday night. If they beat Mount Carmel, they're probably favored to be in the driver's seat for a league championship. KZ still stands out there, but all the team goals, or at least a lot of them for Olney, come down to Friday night.
Yeah. And Olney has a very good pedigree when it comes to the postseason. So they're just not thinking about getting in. They're thinking about taking a good long walk in the postseason. And that's really what everybody in this conference should be doing. And so Olney's one of those teams that has done that. So they do more than just walk the walk a little bit. So, so it'll be nice. So they can get that playoff anxiety out of the way. They'll have 6 wins. They're in like Flynn. So now just continue to get better and pile it on. And if you get to be 9-0, you're going to get a home game, maybe the first 2 rounds. If you're lucky to have Mount Carmel that one year, we might get it all 3 in the first round. So you just never know, but you're going to get a first round home game. And so obviously that's the next goal now, if they can nail it and win the LIC as well too. But anyway, so yep, like I said, it's going to be a huge game.
And we're getting set for that 7 o'clock for the kickoff. No weather impacts Friday night. I don't think there's any more hurricanes brewing to enter into the Midwest anyway for right now. So sunshine, cool temperatures, fall football weather Friday night at the Snake Pit, 6 o'clock for the pregame show on WSJD, live video stream via the News Channel 15 YouTube as well. That's going to be lots of fun. Maybe the game of the year in the conference.
Yeah, and I'd say one final thing too. This may be the game of the year for Olney because of the history between these 2 clubs. And you know what? I don't think it's the game of the year for Mount Carmel. Well, it is a game of the year, but for a completely different reason. I mean, we are 3-2. We've got to get to 6 for sure, and that means Olney, KZ looking later in the year. I mean, it's a tough road this last half of the year. And we've got to find a way to get 3 more wins out of this bunch that we've got left. We only got 4 teams left in the regular season. Maybe we'll get in at 5-4. We think we might, but you take your chances. I know last year all the 5-4s got in. but 2 or 3 years ago, it was like it used to be every year. So you just never
Road.
know
Yeah.
year to year. So I mean, it's a big game for completely different reasons for both these clubs, I think, and the conference is only just part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. The playoff, the ability to extend the season is certainly on the line for the Golden Aces as well. One of the many reasons to get to the game and get there early and get there extra early because at 6:30 on Friday night, it's the Hall of Fame induction ceremony for the Booster Club's Mount Carmel High School Athletics Hall of Fame. We're inducting the third class of the relatively newly formed Hall of Fame, but it's something that I know you and I are very honored to be part of with that committee. And the group has put together another great Hall of Fame induction class. And we want everybody to enjoy it. There's so much going on during the course of the football game. It's even pink out night, Friday night at Riverview Stadium to recognize cancer survivors. So the Hall of Fame ceremony is at 6:30. So wrap up the tailgates a little early, be at the stadium early, and be there for that Hall of Fame ceremony on Friday night.
And then Kyle and I will be out at Stymies after the game. We'll have a program like we've had the last couple of years with members, family members, and who knows how many of the 74 football aces will come out and be a part of this group. We'll get a chance to talk it over in a little public gathering, and hopefully everybody enjoy that as well. And then so that'll be a lot of fun. But that ends the evening on Friday night.
Yeah, and so if you ever wanted to see a Golden Aces Nation podcast production live, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what it's going to be Friday night out at Stymies following the game. So 6:30 for the introduction of the Hall of Fame class of 2024, and then I think they'll be recognized briefly later in the game. But then the celebration that follows out at Stymies, out at the golf course, immediately following the football game. Hope you can enjoy all of those festivities this weekend. Let's see if I can get in trouble on the list of inductees this year. Tyra Buss, women's basketball. Obviously, we know Tyra's story, the all-time leading scorer in Mount Carmel history, in Illinois history in girls basketball, former IU player. Jessica Bain Snow, the state high jump champion, and obviously wife of Craig Snow. It'll be our first power couple of the Hall of Fame. Craig was inducted last year into the Sports Hall of Fame. We've got Lauren Kiefer Nicholson, who is an equestrian Olympian who is being enshrined this year. The first females to go into the Hall of Fame here in the third year of the inductions. We've also going to be recognizing a former great quarterback in
Yep.
Sharon Lee Miller
Sure. Yep.
from the 1967 team. I think is that the accurate
Actually,
year?
1960 to I think the 60 team. I think he
Okay.
was the one that was a quarterback on that 9-0 team. Went to Western Kentucky University, starred for them, led them to the Tangerine Bowl as a college division team back then. That was impressive. That's like the year SIU went to the NIT and won it one year. So impressive. And now he's in their Hall of Fame at Western Kentucky.
Yeah, and then the first team to experience playoff success in Mount Carmel, the 1974 football team that went all the way to the state championship. A little sad that Doug the Toe Peterson is not going to be with us in person, passing away here, but he'll be here in spirit, no doubt. His foot sent that team to the championship in a game that was won 3-0 in 1974 in the semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, we've had field goals in other games and we've had field goals to win games, but none more important than that kick from the toe in 1974.
His daughter Sydney will be there to represent him on Friday night. And then Tim Wachs, our good friend who has
Yep.
been the clock keeper since Larry Davis at Mount Carmel High School. I think fans take for granted what Tim does, and he's the first friend of Aces Athletics to be enshrined into the Hall of Fame at Mount Carmel High School. Tim is about as shy and timid and quite frankly nervous about going into the Hall of Fame as anybody, but he very well deserves it. And so we're hoping that we have a big crowd at 6:30 at the Snake Pit on Friday night to recognize those folks into the Hall of Fame on Friday. Let's run down some other things going on in Golden Aces Nation. We've spent a lot of time on football as we typically do and probably should do, but how about this girls golf team winning their fifth consecutive regional, doing it at home Heading to the sectional, they knocked off everybody else in the field. It was a 40-plus stroke win again. Emily Gottman was the medalist. This team just never, they don't cease to amaze.
I mean, this was the year we thought the jig might be up, and a lot of people were talking, but it's nowhere clear. It's nowhere close. In fact, they've set records. They've broken the records of some of these phenomenal teams and individuals this year again.
Yeah.
And I'm just always floored by the fact that it's not like we're 5-0 in dual meets or something, and we've beaten all the local area teams in a couple of duels. We've won every single invitational, no matter where it is, Cocopelli, Carmi, wherever. We have beaten every single team there is, including the state tournament fields, for the last 4 years. That's amazing.
And imagine if in the COVID year they actually played a state final, that record, that number might have been more, and we might be chasing more state championships.
Well, yeah, because we talked about it at the time too, Kyle. We declared them the mythical state champs because they ran through the regionals that year, as I recall, right? There was
Yep.
that section, and we had by far the lowest score of anybody in the state. Granted, that's a numbers game, but we were so dominant that year that we declared ourselves mythical champs because there was no state champion that year. And you know what? We've been even more dominant at the regional level since when we declared ourselves mythical champions.
Right. So add that to the list, the self-proclaimed state champions of the COVID year, but they won it again. They'll be at the sectional in Effingham on Monday, looking to win their fifth straight sectional championship. Meanwhile, the boys golf team competed in their regionals today. The boys just missed out on advancing to sectionals as a team. You had to be in the top three. The Aces finished fourth. But we did see some individuals advance to the state final. Colin Kelsey, I think, led the way for the Aces today. He finished, I want to say, third overall. I had those results pulled up and then they disappeared on me. So let me get back to that briefly. But the boys golf team is keeping pace with the girls as best they can, and you know, we can't forget that the boys golf team has a state championship to its credit too.
And a second place finish as well. So, oh yeah, it's been amazing watching these two golf teams over the last 10 or 15 years.
As I pull up those 2A regional results that were at Mattoon earlier today, I can tell you Mount Carmel finished fourth of a team as a team. They were 13 shots back of third place Mattoon. And then advancing individually, Mount Carmel's Colin Kelsey fired a 79 to advance. Also, let's see here. How can I forget Hatcher Knipe, my cousin, the sophomore, advancing to state for Mount Carmel, and Drake Stevenson, a freshman, also advancing to state. Hatcher fired an 84, Drake fired an 85. So three Golden Aces off to, I think I keep saying state, they're off to sectionals next week in boys golf.
Yeah, but that's impressive for Drake, huh? Freshman year and advance off the first level. Boy, that's a huge learning block for him.
The only freshman to advance individually from the Mattoon regional. So congratulations. Meanwhile, the girls tennis team Thursday, they will take on Newton. Monday, they're at Fairfield. Tuesday of next week, hosting Mount Vernon, Illinois. The Lady Aces tennis team lost to Paris this past Thursday, a 9-0. Cross country's kind of in a lull. They'll be in action Thursday at Robinson. Meanwhile, the volleyball Aces are trending towards a Little Illini Conference Championship. They're 4-0 in the league, 12-9 overall. They had their hands full, beating Casey 2-1 late last week, and Sarah McCorkle actually went down injured in that match, so they kind of had to deal with the injury of one of their star players and battled through it. Bounced back to 2-0 straight sets win over Lawrenceville last time out, and won the first game against Fairfield, who's kind of become a powerhouse in the region, but fell 2-1 to the Mules at the Mule Barn. Circle the calendar, though. Next Tuesday, Mount Carmel takes on Newton, and that is a team in Newton that's 2-0 in the league and has a win over Mount Carmel, 2-1 in a tournament that was played back in late August, early on in the season. that probably is going to be the Little Illini Conference Championship game, and it's at the Hilltop Tuesday night. So we want to encourage all of Golden Aces Nation to go out and support the Lady Aces as they march toward another LIC conference crown.
Yeah, that would be two in a row, right? So well, let's hope we get a big crowd for that one.
And then soccer, again, the youthful soccer team, they lost to Olney 2-1 and Reveille 3-1. Next week, they've got Pinckneyville at home on Monday. They travel to Newton Tuesday and host Harrisburg at home next Thursday. Getting closer to postseason time in a lot of these fall sports, so get out and support the Aces as you can at all of those upcoming events.
And you know, when you think of how early they play the Gulf State tournament, you think it'll be the middle of October, and you're going, boy, that's pretty early for that. But no, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago? We had snow for the boys' state tournament. So does us talking about the postseason in golf mean winter is on the way?
Ugh.
I hope not. Anyway,
We're going straight from 90 and hurricanes last week to snow, huh?
Yeah.
That's the forecast. I thought we'd spend some time. We wanted to talk about the Hall of Fame ceremony this week. We talked about that 1982 team. And again, we want to encourage everybody to be at the Snake Pit on Friday night. It should be lots of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to the matchup. This is going to be a good test for this young Mount Carmel team. This team just thrills me. I really enjoy the fact that this is such a young and different team than last year. Isn't it fun watching this team? It's one thing to watch a bunch of veterans get better and better and start at such a high plateau and then work to perfection. And that's got its own element of fun to it. But there's nothing better than watching a complete new team, virtually, of newbies in many cases, all trying to come together as freshmen through not too many seniors, but freshmen through seniors, and they've all got to work together. That's a 4-year gap, and it's hard to get 40 kids together when it's that much of a yearly spread, and there's only 5 guys to lead the way as seniors. It can be a tough challenge, but I just like the way these kids are coming on. They're getting better every game. And they're getting closer to the goal, and so this will definitely be a test and a half against the Olney Tigers. But like I said, it's just a blast watching this team, and we'll see what happens.
It's got the IHSA this football season, by the way, is launching a 50 for 50 program where they're recognizing the top 50 IHSA football programs, celebrating the 50th year of the IHSA state playoffs, which is it the 50th year? 84, 94, 04, 14, 20.
This would be,
yes, it is the 50th
yes,
year. 74 to 04. It is 50 years. So the 50 for 50. And this week is Mount Carmel's week. The Aces recognized as 36th on the IHSA's entire all class best football programs, talking about facts about the Golden Aces in their post that's on the IHSA social media program Facebook page this week. 435 program wins, 65 playoff wins, 1 state championship. And I think you can even actually order some merchandise from the IHSA recognizing Mount Carmel as one of the top 50 football programs in IHSA history. That's remarkable.
And you know what I liked? I read that too, Colin. You know what I liked about that post that they came up with? There's only been 3 schools with more playoff appearances than Mount Carmel in terms of years. And we've had 41, and hopefully we're gearing towards 42. But I thought perhaps the best stat was how successful we've been in the first round. We are 30-11 in first round games. And there's not too many teams like that. There's a lot of teams you go through school by school, their playoff history. There's a lot of schools that have never gotten past the first round yet. And they played more than 10. They made more than 10 or 12 playoff appearances, and they haven't even won a game yet. And here we are, 30-11 in the postseason, which again dovetails back to what we said earlier. There for a long time, the playoff mantra was the more successful teams hit the road in the first round. And yet we still did very well over those years, winning almost 3 times as many games as losing in the first round. I think that's incredible.
And not to date you here, but am I right that there's only been 1 playoff run that you were not the voice for?
In 1974. Gary Little was the voice of the Aces that year. Yep.
Yeah, so that's remarkable. You've seen them all. You've seen a lot, partner. That's a lot of playoff football.
I've just worn everybody down. Now, I did not do the 76 team, the 76 team that played Murfreesboro in the postseason. I didn't do that
Okay,
one either.
there you
And
go.
really, to be honest with you, I sort of was there in 79, but that's only because I was still working for Charleston then, and I was in attendance at the game, the Charleston Mount Carmel game, hollering and screaming for Charleston that night. So,
There you
um,
go.
but that's
Well,
been it. Everything else has been, yep, I've
we
been there.
asterisk that one. So just two that you've missed,
Yeah,
right? There
yeah.
you go. Well, that's we've told a lot of stories tonight. We've had a lot of fun with you. And we hope to see you at the Snake Pit on Friday night. And we got through everything, right? We're done. That's it.
Well, I think we did. Yep. And
Yeah.
it's a big weekend this year. Not only the
Yeah.
big game, but it's Hall of Fame weekend. It's just a great weekend to be in Mount Carmel. Hope to see you at the game.
Yeah. Be at the game. Be there early for the Hall of Fame ceremony at 6:30. Kickoff is at 7. The Stymies Hall of Fame reception follows the game out at Stymies at West Berwick Golf Course. That's Scott Allen, the Hall of Fame voice of the Golden Aces. I'm Kyle Peach. We'll see you next week on the podcast and see you at the Snake Pit Friday night.
Yep. Bye bye.